This tractor on the wagon today is a 1964 John Deere 4020 diesel. It's kind of pulling a little extra duty today. We normally don't use it on the wagon. We usually have the A John Deere or else the farm all on, but they got a little bit of a problem today, so we're going with this one. So. The white building right ahead of us was a slaughterhouse. It was built during World War II. They butchered hogs, beef, chickens here for the restaurants uptown. They operated out of here until 1967. The little building on the back was the smokehouse. You'll notice it had a cement roof on it. That way it didn't burn down when they had the smoke fire going. They smoked hams, bacons, and sausages in there. Along the side of the trail here on the left is where the horse and the cow come at night. They come out here and they can stretch their legs and relax a little bit. And then they're in the barn for during the day. Over here to the right, this field, we hauled manure on that all spring. And then we plowed it up and got it planted into corn. Corn was a bit of a challenge this year. We had a kind of a cold, wet early spring, and it takes 50 degrees soil temperature to germinate the corn seed. So we waited a little longer, planted a little bit later this year, and it warmed up good then, and we got pretty decent corn. It got a little bit dry here a couple weeks ago, but we got an inch and a half of rain. Now it's looking pretty good. Takes an inch of rain a week for a field of corn to reach its maximum production, so we need to keep the rain coming all summer long. Up ahead of us back there by the line fence is one of my hunting houses. That's where we do our deer hunting and turkey hunting from. We have a lot of deer and wild turkeys here at the farm. The other morning there was 19 deer and 13 turkeys out here all at the same time. That's quite unusual. Up here on the left, this is our one of our hay fields. It's a mixture of alfalfa and timothy. Once we have a hay field established, we leave it into hay for 3 or 4 years. Alfalfa is good for the soil. It sends down a taproot, breaks up the compaction in the soil, and it's a legume, so it makes nitrogen too. So when we plow up an old hay field, we'll usually plant it into corn. Corn uses up the extra nitrogen. Now they call that sustainable agriculture. It's the green thing to do. We've been doing it forever, but now it's cool. Al Gore said so. Our pal Al. We've taken 2 cuttings of hay off already this year. We'll get 2 more cuttings yet before winter. The next field here to the left is oats. Oats is the first crop that we plant in the spring. They'll germinate when the soil is only 38 degrees. Now, we use our oats all for feed, but they do use oats for making oatmeal and Cheerios. Up ahead on the other side, on the right-hand side, just past this pine tree is a honeybee hive. There's about 60,000 bees in a hive and only 1 queen. She'll lay 1,000 to 1,500 eggs a day. Now it takes that many just to keep the hive going. The worker bees will only live 4 to 6 weeks. Queen bees, they'll live about 2 years. Here to the left is our wheat field. In this area we grow soft white winter wheat. It's planted in the fall. Then it goes dormant over the winter, greens up again in the spring. It's usually harvested about mid-July. Now they mill that right here in Frankenmuth at the Star of the West Milling Company. They mill soft white wheat into pastry flour. It's used for cookie and pie dough. The bran, the outside coating of the wheat's kernel, goes to Battle Creek, where Kellogg's and Post cereal companies use it for their Raisin Bran and other brand cereals. The hard wheat that's grown out on the Great Plains is the wheat that's used to make bread flour, And Durham wheat is grown in Minnesota. That's used for spaghetti and macaroni. They ship flour as far away from here as Oklahoma. That's where the Bama Pie Company's located. They make the pies for McDonald's restaurants. Star of the West furnishes flour for Keebler cookies. Sara Lee Company and Girl Scout cookies are made from Star of the West flour also. There's a lot of blackbirds out here in the oat field. They really like the oats when they're just getting ripe enough to, and they eat. Every day there's more blackbirds come. The word travels fast in a small town. Not very many people raise oats anymore, so when they find a field of oats, they hit them pretty hard. Over here on the left, that's a big round bale of hay. Animal rights people don't want us feeding round bales to the animals anymore. They said they weren't getting a square meal. Just kidding, I don't want to get in trouble with PETA. I do belong to PETA though. People eating tasty animals. That's a different PETA. This is the dead creek that we're traveling along. It flows into the Cass River just west of Frankenmuth. In the spring, suckers and northern pike come up the creek to spawn. Spearing season for suckers opens on the 1st of April. They spear them at night with gas lanterns and waders. It's not legal to spear northern pike in the creek in the spring, but once in a while one does commit suicide. It's usually a pretty nice one too. Then we call them long-nosed suckers. This bush up ahead here on the left is an elderberry bush. Later on in the summer, those berries turn to a dark blue. You mix them about half with apple, they make an excellent pie. They make good wine and good jam too. Well, there's a lot of holes along the bank of the creek here. Those are woodchuck holes. Woodchucks are not a good animal to have on a farm. They dig holes out in the fields, and then the horses can step in those holes and injure their legs. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? A woodchuck would chuck all the wood a woodchuck could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. One little boy one day, he said none because they're vegetarians. I said, well, when I went to school, wood was a vegetable. He said it was not. Up ahead here on the right is our pumpkin field. We usually plant our pumpkins end of May. Soil temperature has to be 70 degrees to germinate the pumpkin seed. If you plant them too early in the cold soil, they'll just rot. They won't grow. Now these rows are planted 12 feet apart. That gives the vines a chance to spread out. Makes for a lot nicer pumpkins. We sell most of the pumpkins right here at the farm in the fall. And we do supply a couple of wholesale people with pumpkins too. Right here in front of the bridge is an alligator. I didn't know if it was an alligator or a crocodile, but one little boy from Florida, he said the way you can tell the difference, crocodiles eat people, alligators don't. So it must be an alligator. It hasn't ate anybody yet. You have to be kind of careful. They can jump quite a ways. They sleep with, or at least this one sleeps with his eyes open, so you never know if he's watching you or not. I petted him one day and see what he did to my finger. But that's okay because I get my gloves cheaper now because they don't have to put as many fingers on them. This bridge was built in 1907. It was across the Cass River by St. Lawrence Church, a mile west of town on Damel Road. A few years ago, we put it across the creek here to save it from the cutting torch. Put a new deck on. This is Douglas fir out of Oregon. You know how to keep a dead fish from smelling? You plug his nose. This white building up ahead of us here is a one-room country school. It was built in 1860. It was the second school district opened in Tuscola County. Had all 8 grades going to school with one teacher. Closed in 1921. That's earlier than most country schools. The one I went to didn't close until 1968. This was an English school. They didn't have enough students. They combined with Tuscola to have enough for a classroom. Most of the schools in this area were German schools. There's 30 desks in there, and school groups come out on field trips, spend some time in the old school, and do the farm tour while they're here. There's been several weddings here at the school. They do the Little House on the Prairie themed weddings. As far as I know, they're still all married. Honeymoon's over. Honeydew started. The key to a successful marriage is yes, dear. We have the outhouse out back. This was a two-holer. That was top of the line for your bottom. A few years ago, the Frankenmuth News did a feature article on our outhouse. Had a picture of it in the paper and a whole story about the history of it. Must have been a slow news week. There's windows in it too. That way you could read the paper, and then when you were done, you could use it. You know what the dog said that wiped his butt with sandpaper? Rough, rough. What do you call a dog with no legs? Doesn't really matter. He's not going to come anyway. You know where to find a dog with no legs? Right where you left him. We have to be careful when we go across the bridge. We don't want to wake the troll up under the bridge. He gets kind of grumpy when you wake him up in the daytime. One day he came out with a weed whacker and goggles on. He was going to have a manwich for lunch. Today he's having kid nuggets. One day last year, there was 3 trolls over there under that highway bridge. They all had MDOT vests on. You know what's orange and sleeps 3? County trucks. We had one of the police officers on one day. He thought that was pretty funny. I said I wouldn't laugh if I were you. I heard instead of dialing 911, we're supposed to call Krispy Kreme. He hasn't gave me a ticket yet. I heard the other day that FedEx and UPS are going to merge. They're going to call that Fed Up. Up ahead on the other side of the road in the trees is Cross Park. There's an 1853 log cabin over there. In the spring and fall, the museum people put on programs. School groups go out there on field trips, and they show them what it was like to live in this area during the 1850s. The park is open all the time. You can go in there and look around, look through the windows of the cabin if you'd like. You can see all the construction going on here and on the other side of the road. They're putting in a welcome to Frankenmuth archway across the whole highway here. It's $750,000 project. They've really put a lot of re-rod in here, and a lot of concrete's been poured. The other day they run 9 loads of concrete in this hole. That was the starting of the foundation there for the mounting on this side. They got 2 more sections to put up yet on top of that. End up as high as the tractor fender here is when they get done. There's a hole in the tree up ahead of us. It's a squirrel's hole. She's got a condo there. She's got another entrance up on the other limb that comes on down. She's kind of in the high rent district here in Frankenmuth. She just put in DirecTV this year. She gets Animal Planet and the Nature Channel. She also has Applebee's Curbside to Go. I bring her down ears of corn and put it by the tree. She's looking out right now. You can see her there in the hole. It's a pretty nice squirrel. She don't eat much. I think she's related to that alligator. Came from the same store. As we turn the corner up ahead, you can look across the road. Between the pine trees, you'll see the front of that log cabin. It's 18 feet wide and 30 feet long, all hand-hewed timbers. Right straight across now. This house was built in 1900. Unique thing about this house, it was never remodeled inside. It's got the original woodwork in there yet. Never had a bathroom put in it either. Got the outdoor brick oven here beside it. They'd fire that up during the summer and do all their baking out there. That way it didn't get so hot in the house. They didn't have to run the cook stove all the time. Get 17 loaves of bread at a time in there. Out back there is the outhouse. It was 50 yards to the outhouse by Willie Make It, illustrated by Betty Won't. Now they kept the broom in there in the winter so you could sweep the snow off the seat first. Then they had a pail of corn cobs sitting in there. They had white cobs and they had red cobs. The white cobs are to see whether or not you might need another red one. That's before they had Charmin. Over here on the right is our garden. Our early sweet corn is tossing out already. Looks pretty nice. And we got beans and peas. They've been picking peas now for a couple weeks. We dug a few nice potatoes for our 4th of July picnic already. They're coming along really good. And the tomatoes are all in blossom too. So if we keep getting some rain, we should have some pretty good garden crops. Up ahead here on the left, that's our zinnia garden. They started blooming about a week ago, and they'll bloom now right up until they freeze in the fall. Well, we made it back and we didn't get lost. That's always good. Most of what I told you is true.